Okay, so we created our first custom component. It's definitely not too exciting, but it is a custom component. And we're using it in app.js. Now let's make it a bit more exciting at least. And for that, in the expense-item.js file, I want to tweak the HTML code which is being returned here. Let's say an expense item should not just be some title, but we also want to display the amount of this expense and then also the date. So therefore, we want to write HTML code which nicely displays and structures these three pieces of information. Hence here, we could say that we want to have a div HTML element which displays the date later. And for the moment, I'll just put date here as a placeholder. And then next to that div, I'll have, let's say, another div, which actually should display the title, let's say inside of a h2 tag, title. And then also another div next to the title with the amount. Now you can see this is getting unreadable, but even worse, it seems to have an error. My IDE is complaining about this line of code. Now regarding the readability, we could try to split it across multiple lines, but that would be kind of invalid. But we have a bigger problem anyways. This code is not valid like this. In React components, there is one important rule regarding this HTML, this JSX code, which you return inside of a component. You must only have one root element here per return statement, or per JSX code snippet, you could say. And here we have this div side by side with this div, which means we have two root elements here in this statement. And that's simply not allowed. Now, why is that not allowed? That's something I'll come back to in a deep dive lecture later in this section. For the moment, let's just accept that this is not allowed. And therefore, the question is how we may work around that. One of the easiest workarounds is to wrap this into another div, opening and closing. So an opening div and then a closing div. I will also show you another workaround later, but that is a simple workaround we can apply immediately. Now regarding the readability, we can improve that by also wrapping this all in brackets, simply to signal to JavaScript that this is one and the same statement, even if it should span multiple lines. And then we can restructure this as we want to. Though the quickest way of restructuring this really is to use the auto format shortcut, which I just did. You can find this if you go to your preferences, keyboard shortcuts, and there you search for format document. This shortcut, if you press this, it automatically formats your code and makes it easier to read. And I will use this shortcut a lot throughout this course because it keeps our code readable and manageable. And now we expanded this HTML code of this component, and we now have more than just one h2 tag. And very important is that rule of having only one root element. Inside of this one element, which we return here, so inside of this main div, which we return here, you may then have multiple elements, and these elements then also may be side by side, as you can tell. It's really just the root element in a JSX code snippet, like here when we return it, which must only be one element instead of multiple side by side elements. But with that, we now prepared our basic structure here. Now, of course, for title, we might now say car insurance. For amount, we maybe say $249.67, something like this. And for date, we might say something like March 28th, 2021. Something like this. And if we now save this, that's what we see here. Still not looking super nice, but we can see it. And we can see that we can have more complex HTML structures inside of our components as well. Nonetheless, of course, our applications also should look nice. They should not just have some HTML code which is ugly. So let's now have a look at how we can add some basic styling here.